Hi everyone, I have Vandana with me, and we'll be, so this is the second session of Azure Developer Community Women in Cloud specifically, and we have Vandana with us today. And so little introduction about Vandana. Vandana is a security solution architect at Snyk, and she is a vice chair of OWASP Global Board of Directors. She leads a lot of diversity related initiatives. She has speaking. She has been a trainer, keynote speaker for various public events, mostly related to security, and she has been a recipient of multiple awards like Cybersecurity Women of the Year 2020. Congratulations, Vandana, for that. She received Application Security Influencer 2020 by White Source, so on and so forth. So Vandana will be, majorly, she'll be speaking in security leveraging DevOps. So I think I'm gonna add Vandana before wasting much time. And over to you, Vandana.
Hi, Niloshima. Thank you so much. And hi, everyone, wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's a very cold evening here. So I like to wear my hat like this one, which I totally love. And today I'm going to be speaking about Azure DevOps pipeline, but keeping security in mind. We have about it before, but I've added few more things. And especially right now, the whole internet is by storm with the log4shell or log4j vulnerability. So we're going to be talking about some dependencies, some things that are very much needed at the moment while we are dealing with the pipelines or while dealing with the environments that we currently have. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And to save the bandwidth, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop my video, if that's okay, and share my screen. All right. Okay. Can you see my screen? Hi, Niloshima. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, it is. It is visible. I have added it to the
Thank you
screen.
so much. Thank you. All right. So here we are. So I'm a security relations leader at Snyk and OWASP Global Board of Directors. I'm not going to speak about myself more. I'll just straight get into this session. So what do you see this? Like, what do you feel what this is? So this is the futuristic image that we really want or that we really look for. But do you think that this conversation is going to be recorded at somewhere, maybe on cloud somewhere, or probably we would be like somebody might be tracking the conversation? Could be possible, and especially if there is a connectivity with an internet or maybe when the patches are getting downloaded, there could be a possibility that there is a malicious patch which might get downloaded on your latest devices. So it's like robot, but then there could be a number of things that we might be using or we are using, and they might be tracking us. I remember there were couple of devices where we connect with, we ask some information from them, and those devices actually share the data with third party vendors. Oh, it was very scary at that time, but then it is so easy to capture that data, right? When we are dealing with the online connected devices, even in our homes, we have smart geysers, smart washing machines, and whatnot. Everything is so much connected. I will take a lot of examples which are like so commonly used, or especially from our home, because we can relate to it. I can relate to it. Now, how developers play a role in security incidents and what security supply chain or DevOps or DevSecOps or software security has to deal with it. The most important aspect is developers are at the heart of companies' innovation. This slide I have picked up from Azure DevOps presentation because I really liked it, wherein everything is interconnected. And when it is interconnected, and developers are actually the key people, they are accelerating the collaboration, it becomes imperative that we have the right security. Or what will happen, the breaches that we have been seeing, and even there is a recent incident wherein we could see log4shell or log4j is just being talked about everywhere. There are so many live streams, there are so many sessions and whatnot, and everyone is just discussing about that. So the point comes is that, can developers be a malware distribution vehicle? Think about it. It can be possible, right? Or it might not be possible, but let me show you something here. So there was one backdoor which was actually part of JavaScript library, which was used in stealing Bitcoin funds. How it happened? There was one ecosystem which needed some updates, and after some time, somebody said, "I want to help out, and I have an update which can fix all these bugs." This person helped. After a few months, there was a malicious update that was made. Looked like came from the same person, pull request accepted, people started using it. What happens next? It was actually a backdoor, stealing the bitcoins. It was a big, big, big problem. So that can happen wherein this event stream became an issue. Now, how much do we really know about our ecosystem when we use it? We talk about all the agile methodologies, we talk about DevOps, we talk about DevSecOps and whatnot we talk about. But how much do we know about our own code? So this is our app. That's what we think. This is like the mental blob that we have, that this is our app which is on the internet. But what is next? So this is actually our code, which is just the pink circle. And the funny thing is that it does not cover everything. But what is rest of the other thing? It is the open source code. So while we are dealing with all of that, how about somebody starts attacking the developer tooling itself, which we are using? I'm a huge fan of Visual Studio Code. It helps me run everything in one place. Run my code, I can integrate pipelines, I can have so much more. Now, when that happens, what could go wrong? Now, there was one bug which was reported in Microsoft Visual Studio Code, and it was in January 2021 itself. Now, people can actually, or the person who actually found out the bug could get hold of the GitHub repositories. And now, when that severely can hit, but fortunately that person reported it to Microsoft and it was fixed. But what happens to software supply chain attacks? Is it impacting everyone? Absolutely, it is impacting everyone. That's why we are talking about SBOM, like software bill of material, so that we can track them. And then talk about software supply chain new risk profile. Open source, 80 to 90% of the code base is open source. We just saw that. We were thinking that everything is our code, but no, now we only write 10 to 20% of the custom code. Rest everything is all open source. And containers, infrastructure as a code, like that's becoming one big thing. I totally love infrastructure as a code, because I can spin up many instances in just one go, or the whole environment whenever I need. But then those approaches, how much is it feasible if we don't take care of all the activities that are happening? So things have to be managed, things have to be checked, things have to be accelerated. So here, when we talk about DevOps, so DevOps is basically what it is. It was all a waterfall model earlier. So we were going through phase by phase, and then in the end security used to come. And sometimes what used to happen, or I would say most of the times, the development used to take 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, and then after the whole development is done, we used to go for amazing party. Now that changed over the period of time. We saw that there is a huge shift in technology which is happening, and we wanted things to move fast. So we started to adopt agile methodologies, and we started to adopt the mechanisms which wherein we can fail fast and get to know what things are working and how things are working and what things can sustain, and how things can flourish. So point came, we need to have DevOps. So where people, process, products, technology, everything started combining, and at the same time culture became part of the whole ecosystem, that we want to make sure that people contribute to it. Now while we talk about that, so in the security phase we started shifting left, wherein security became one integral part. Uh, we started using security at each phase. Learning, technology, knowledge sharing also became part of the whole process. Now, you must be thinking, I should be talking about Azure. And why am I talking about all of this? Because when we talk about DevSecOps, DevOps pipelines, there are some core principles, automation. And that's why we're using Azure DevOps pipeline for automation. Culture, because we want to make sure that things are going right. People are happy with what they're doing. They're sharing ideas so that we can improve. And while we are working on something, we are able to measure it and share it with the rest of the other people, so that we understand what we have in our environment. There are breaches which happens because we don't know what we have in our environments. um, so Azure pipeline, again, this presentation I picked it up from Azure DevOps pipeline presentation, because this one showed amazing um, phases, from where we started off with dev environment, QA, production, like everything in different go. And if we need to test performance or something or security at each phase, we can test. And when we talk about Azure pipelines, we can actually deploy on on-premise systems, any cloud, or even hybrid of cloud if we want it. And then there are different stages that we can create. So this is how it looks like, and so much more that we can do with it, all of it. Here, if I want to have security where I want to fail something, I can do that. Now let me go ahead and show you the integrated tooling system. So this is totally I love, because there are multiple tools which are part of it, and there are multiple CLIs which are part of it. Most of them is open source. There are some, I think some of them could be commercial, but then most of them are all open source, and that's why I kept it here, so that we can use it. And Visual Studio Code is something which I totally use all the time to use my Azure pipelines as well. Now, open source adoption. There are so many open source tools. It's just that a brief of it, but I'm going to show you in the demo, wherein we are going to be preparing this whole DevOps architecture or DevSecOps architecture. Now, let me go ahead and do one thing. My screen might zoom out for a few seconds. All right, I'm gonna be here. So this is my DevOps, Azure DevOps looks like. But I'm sure some of you might not be using Azure DevOps. So what you need to do is just go here and type Azure DevOps. And here you can actually go to DevOps services or Azure.Microsoft. You can go there, or if you look at here, you can start free. If I click start free, it's going to take me, okay. So it's going to take me to the same screen, which it is here. Like if you see here. Now, the point comes that what I really, really want. I, so I have already set it up. So it didn't ask me. But then for you, you might need to fill out some details. You might need to request for some free pipeline credits. But then it is so easy, so smooth that you can go ahead and try it. And this can happen with any cloud. But I totally love Azure DevOps pipeline because it's easy to pull off. So I created a project first because I have so many projects. So if you see here, I've created multiple projects. But then this one is my main project. So here I actually created the project. And once you create the project, you can look at multiple statistics. What do we have? There are work created, there are pull requests if somebody has that, or if I want to play around. So there are boards that I can create, and if there are repos that I can fork or I can create, and then pipelines I can create. If you see here, I have multiple pipelines, or I have integrated multiple things here. Similarly, you can create. Now you must be thinking, how can I create boards? So boards, you can just go ahead and create, go to boards, and you can look at your boards, you can create your work items, so you can track every agile methodology or every process here itself. You can have your repos here, and then you can pull it in the pipeline, or you can just go ahead and create a new pipeline, and then you can use Azure repos, Git, Bitbucket, GitHub Enterprise Server. Let's say I have GitHub. I hope I'll be able to do that, because every time I do that, I forget my password. And then I have a multi-factor authentication enabled and whatnot. By God's grace, it is integrated. It is not asking me. If you see, I created some repositories. So this one was a recent one wherein it is for awesome Log4Shell vulnerable app. And then there are multiple other repositories that I have. So I have a repository which is a vulnerable web application. So what I really want to do with configure my pipeline, do I have a Docker image? Do I want to push the image to Azure Container Registry, or deploy it on the Azure Kubernetes services? And what do I want to do? So that I have to decide. But what to do, it's use existing Azure pipeline YAML file, because I have it. So I can create a master file, I can define a path, I can go ahead and continue. Then the whole YAML script would come here. I can go ahead and run the script. But this is how Azure pipelines work. But when it comes to security, we can simply add some of the projects here. Now, while the pipeline is running, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my project. I'm going to go slow because this is sometimes very crazy. So I'm going to go slow. So here I am at the main project. That's what I want, or main organization. Now, in the organization settings, what I can do is I can have some extensions. Now, the extensions can be installed from the marketplace, which is there. So I have installed all the open source freewares. So here I'm going to go ahead and use, so OWASP is Open Web Application Security Project, which is any organization which needs to adhere to application security standards. Generally look for OWASP Top 10, OWASP Web Testing Guide, or the tools which are available by OWASP. Here, dependency check is one amazing tool for testing the dependencies. Okay, I want it. So I'm going to go ahead, hit get it for free. So it's going to take some time, and it's going to add it to my repository if it's not added. So I'm going to go hit. So download had started. I'm going to go to my marketplace. Oh, 1 second. I'm going to search for OWASP. I'm going to go get it for free. And yep. Now, the another portion is that I can add something more also. I am going to leave this site. I'm going to go ahead and hit the marketplace again. And I'm going to say Zap, because I need to actually test the web application also. So Zap is like an open source scanner. So I'm going to go hit get it for free. And then I can get it for free. Now, this extension is already installed on my ecosystem. For dependency check, could run locally. Now, this is here as it says, but then if you look at here, I have a dependency check, I have a Zap scanner, I have a proxy scanner, like both are the same thing by different people, and then it's also Snyk scan, which is open source. Now what I need to do is again go back to my project and go ahead and start adding these projects. Why do I want these things? Because I want to make sure that when my code is running, it is checking the dependencies which are part of my ecosystem and testing it, whether they are vulnerable or not. At the same time, if there is an application which is running and I want to test it and I want it to be part of my pipeline, I can run it. So if you see the goof is running, I can go ahead and edit, and I can edit the pipeline here. And here, when it runs this hello world, I can go ahead and install a tool after this build is done. I can install, let's say, no condition. I can go ahead and hit dependency check. So you can just go ahead and write a project name, scan path, exclude format, and go ahead and add it. Then, if you, let's say, want to add something else like Zap, so there is a Zap proxy scan. So we can just go ahead and API URL, API key, target URL, and just go ahead and add it. So there are multiple ways that we can do it. And then, let's say, if we want web application firewall, or wait, code rule set. So I can add WAF also. So there are multiple ways I can add things. Now there is no WAF which is available, but then I have ways to do it. Let me go ahead and no, I'm going to leave it. So if you see here, this is Pixie. It's another pipeline of mine where I have added um, the core rule set. Here, the job is being built. I'm using this Pixie and I'm using a container image. And if there is any error, which is going to be logged, and I'm going to run this. I can use multiple things here. So here I'm using core rule set. So what is core rule set? Core rule set is nothing but which uses mod security, which is an open source um, web application firewall, which can be used as part of the whole build process, and I can run it, and which can be fetched from anywhere. I can have it as part of the whole ecosystem as well. Now you must be wanting like how exactly I can add other things. So I can have Azure CLI, I can have database, I can have functions to whatnot, everything in one stop in the whole pipeline. And that's how pipeline is being built. Now another point comes is like, can I have environments? Yes, you can go ahead and create your environment. Let's say first I want to create a dev environment. I'm going to create resource later. So I need to create permission to perform actions. Okay. So let me go ahead and add Kubernetes. Oh, I think I would be able to do it. For none, I have to change the permissions. So I'm going to go ahead and validate. No, it has to be new. And then I'll say QA, validate. Now, the important aspect is that your subscription has to allow you. So I'm using currently the open source subscription, so it is not. But then if you have a pro version, you would be able to validate and create it. Another important aspect is you would be able to create all of these things one by one. And you can have all the releases pointed out here. When you work on the pipelines, you can have task groups assigned to multiple groups. So for QA, they'll be able to work on this. The other people would be able to work on certain more items, so that it is clearly defined that who has access to what. And I can create some deployment group here. Now, while I create these deployment groups, I can have security for them as well. So for everything, I can have some permissions defined, like what I can access and who can access to what. So here I have not listed any permission because this is totally a fresh one. But you can think of a point wherein we want to create zero access point for everyone. Now, why I say that, I am from a dev environment and I only need access to dev. Should I be having access to prod environment? No. So here I only should be getting access, or like zero point of failure wherein only I should be having access to that. Rest others should be blocked. So it will give me that. And user role access management is becoming the new perimeter, I would say, because in cloud we don't have those four boundaries, those four walls. So your identities become very, very important. And in pipelines also, people think, oh, it's just the code. No, it's not just the code, it's not just the tooling, it is the access management also, which is actually play a very big role. And that's why we have these task groups, these deployment groups. And on top of it, we can actually have all the artifacts here. Now, why do we need artifacts? So while we build all of that, we need to make sure we're tracking it. And in pipelines, I've already explained that all of these things are there. And here I have created multiple pipelines with .NET, with Java, and whatnot, because I wanted to make sure that this whole pipeline is being built and released properly. So we can have third party tools being part of our ecosystem. We can have softwares which we can make it part of our DevOps pipeline. Another important thing that I wanted to share is that um, so you can just go to Azure DevOps and search here. So there are multiple things that are going to come here, but the most interesting one is docs.microsoft.com, where there is each and every detail which is listed out there. I just tried to summarize it, but then here if you see Azure DevOps services and whatnot is there, and how to guide through the authentication access for personal access token. Here even you can see how do you create your first pipeline. Let's say you've never used it, so the documentation is pretty clear here. We can create one by one and then add our security to it. So here if you see configure security and settings, here it says when I create a pipeline uh, or artifacts, how can I set the project settings? So I can set the release settings, test settings, every detail. So this is part of the whole security settings that I want to play around with, because it is very very important to track it. And I can configure the retention settings. For how long do I want the data, for how long do I need to keep these information, and for how much information that is needed here. And all of these artifacts can be kept for a longer period. Then I can configure parallel pipelines. Now why do I need to have parallel pipelines? Because I want to make sure that I have pipelines where I can track, or there is one pipeline which is running smooth, there is another pipeline which has security embedded, the exact same thing, but failing the job, so that I can get to know that these are the things that I need to fix. And then I know where things can go wrong. Because if I keep failing the environment because of security issues, it is never going to help. I have seen, I have said no for a go live because there were some critical bugs. But then I realized over the period of time, sometimes there are risk exceptions that I need to have, but then make sure that those bugs are fixed on time or as early as possible. And not just that, I can have pipelines permissions which I can set here, and wherein I can delete the build pipeline, or who can delete the build pipeline, who can modify it, who can edit it, who all people should have access to retention policy, and what do I need. All these things I can check here. Now here, pipeline permissions, like I showed you, here I can just go ahead and go here and manage security. It is super easy to add security to your own pipeline because there are multiple people who will be working in the same group, and you can define what build administrators can do. Can they delete build pipeline? And even these are some basic DevOps groups that are created, but you can create your own groups based on dev, QA, dev2, or any other environment, or like prod, any environment that you create. So you can specify the whole build queue, each and every minutest details that you can say. So you can go to like the very basics of each and everything, and you can talk about who can stop the build, who can create a new build, who can run multiple pipelines, who can check what performance can be measured. So all these things can be done. I'll tell you a funny story. So there was a person who was working for a network team. So this person was managing firewalls. Now, interestingly, when you manage firewalls, you have access to all the firewall rules. Now, this person did. So this person moved to security team. Okay, that's a good thing. Now, network security, all some way correlated. But then there was some issue that happened, wherein um, when this person came to our team, there was some application that we were not able to access. And when we were not able to access it, this person said, give me just 2 minutes and let me fix something for you. went to the firewall, changed the firewall rules, and said, "Oh, can you check now?" And we were able to access. Now, when we were able to access, the point comes security is breaching security. So we raised this concern within the team, and we made sure that if any person moves to any other team, their access is maintained properly. And that's what groups help us for. If somebody is moved from one group to another, they're just being lifted and shifted to another group rather than just being managed or forgotten. You shouldn't be carrying multiple permissions. Like when I am part of the production team, why should I have access to a prod or dev environment? Or when I am part of the QA team, am I supposed to have access to QA environment? No. So these are some basic things, but the most important things that are needed. And then comes a point wherein, okay, here, what all users can actually contribute to the pipeline. Not everyone should be able to have access to the pipeline. Who can actually have multiple versions, or who can create versions in the build services. And let me go ahead and show you the whole security walkthrough. So we actually checked approaching to YAML files, and then secure repositories. Now these are uh, things which you must be thinking that yes, these are some basic items which are there, but yes, if you look at here, it is important to validate what you have, because there are times when there are some critical issues that have come up in the production environment, because the version that was supposed to go into the prod environment, that didn't go, but something else went. So here we need to create a proper project structure. We need to have proper templates. We need to have proper parameters. We need to have where we need to have the infrastructure shared. All these things are so important, which are listed here. And that's why I'm walking you through with these things, that why do we need these security implementations? Why do we talk about it? So I'll tell you a story. When we talk about least privilege, now, there was a chandelier, or you call it as tumor, which my cousin bought. Now, we all stay just nearby or stay somewhat together. And I have, I have a habit of playing around with things. So, one fine day when we were celebrating something, so this person was like so happy about this chandelier because it was playing music via Bluetooth. I was like, okay, interesting. I can play around with it as well. So I connected my device. I had some scripts. Then one day, when we were all on a dinner table, I ran that script, and that chandelier just kept on running, playing the same music, which spooked out every damn person in the house. Now, then I showed that these hacks are so easy to attempt. Similarly, um, we did play around with our house TV, where everyone was watching TV. We connected the Android TV and we started playing around with the channels. Now, the point comes, do we need to have the right security? Absolutely. And that's why, for our repositories, pipelines, which are so important to us, where we are feeding our code, we are spending time, where we are creating content, we need to make sure that the right people have access to it. Not only just the right people have access to it, only the right access they should be given. That's the most important aspect. Now comes a point wherein when we have our dev environment, so the kind of dev environment we need is like, even when I'm sleeping, I can manage it. I know where things are falling apart, I can fix it. That's so important. And not just that, we can take help from OWASP community as well, which is open source, and there are so many things which are there. And we can learn from the dependencies, vulnerabilities which are coming in the wild. So there was one issue that happened in around 2016-17 in Apache. So that was a remote code execution, which is a big issue, and Equifax breach was is known for it. Now comes a point: did we learn something from that breach? Maybe, but then now Log4j, everyone is getting crazy. Are we vulnerable? Are we using that version? People don't know what they have in the environment. So these repositories, Azure DevOps pipeline automation, helps us in realizing what we have in our environment and keeping it up to date. We can integrate tools which are open source, we can detect early on, and we can fix the bugs. And attackers are actually targeting open source. And if there's one vulnerability which can target many people, not just one person, application security or pipeline security is challenging. But then the most important piece, we have one foot in the open source, other foot is in the cloud native environments. But we can secure it if we use the right ways, if we have easier, developer friendly and actionable security. And what we need, best practices for open source security pipelines. And open source is amazing, but let's use it responsibly. We use it for the right security. And yeah, that's what I wanted to share. Thank you so much. Let me go ahead and stop the screen share and go ahead and open it up for any questions.
Thank you so much, Vandana. It was an interesting session, and I learned a lot, especially, and I genuinely like the storytelling. These are, some little bits which, we as an developer, we as an infrastructure manager, we don't know, such type of stuff that, that it does happen, right? So thank you so much for sharing it. I have just one question. I'm showing it on your, board. Vishwas has asked that what is the organization strategy today for the secure DevOps environment and how they are strategizing it?
So one thing that I've learned over the years, that now people are, or organizations are more aware about security. So we are creating, or the organizations are creating security champions. Now, security champions are not security people, but the people who are actually working on ground. Whatever I say, I don't know everything about the environment. If I'm a security person, only developers know they are the champions. So they are the actually best people to be security champions. And that's what the strategy is behind everything. Whatever we say, we are buying the best tools, we are buying the best, we are getting the best people, we have the best process. But if we have the best security champions who know where things can fall apart, or they know when to ask for help, I think that's the best strategy.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, we know that we want to do this, we would like to implement this, but that when is a really big question mark where we are supposed to uh, you know be more careful about, right? And
That's totally right.
what do you think about, should we plan for security early ahead, or maybe let's say, um, uh, us being a small organization, and we would like to definitely want to go ahead with million users. So how should we strategize it then? But as of now, zero.
Right. I would say that you don't have to plan for security at all. If you plan for security at all, then at some point that planning might fail. That happens. Now, when you are a small organization, it's the best opportunity. Take help from open source softwares. There are
Mhm.
people who are going to be writing code for you. There are people who are going to be creating DevOps pipeline for you. Make sure they have one training that is dedicated for security for them. Then you don't need anything. You have the right people who understand security, and then they can do magic. Because I have seen people who moved from testing environments to security, and that became the best. Similarly, uh, there are people who were developers and then they moved to security team, and they were the best of people because they knew the development environment, how teams work, how organization work, and that became the
Mhm.
best thing.
Yeah, I,
So
I agree to that.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, being a developer, you are more aware what you would like to do, and uh, I mean, as a developer, you should know, or maybe should be able to guess when you would like to do it. So yeah.
Right. And another
So
point comes is like when you have a small environment, even medium level environment or medium size organization, you can actually play around with people on their skill sets. it is only going to help them. It is like upskilling people. I love learning new things about Kubernetes, about containers, about all of those things, because till the time I don't know them, I can't secure it. Whatever I say, I am a good security person. No, I can't do that. Similarly, when we have people who are more interested in knowing about security rather than security being forced upon them, saying, you have to do it. If someone says, you have to do it, you have to do
I
it. I will never
don't
do it.
feel like
Or
doing
even,
it.
yeah, I would never feel like doing it. I might do it because it's like forced upon me, but then half and half.
True, I understand that. So one interesting question has been asked from Arvin, and he asked that what is the strategy to ensure or maybe test that application already, whether it is secure enough, as OWASP, Zap proxy just scan based the scenario script being tested, and in actual pen test, some security still can be found.
Let me tell you, Arvind, one important thing. Security is at every phase, security is at every step. And if someone says that security is enough, no, security is never enough. And that's why I said secure shift left is also not enough. It's all our mindset wherein we have to start, and then make sure that we start the testing early on. We do the threat modeling when the application is being built or designed. We do the architecture review. There are things which we can fix in the architecture review itself. We'd say, okay, these are the things that can be done. At the same time, when we move ahead to a development phase, or to a phase wherein we start writing the code, we can have secure software development. We can have leverage given to the developers itself so that they can test themselves. We don't need to come in. They'll have one edge over it. Then comes the OWASP app, which does the testing on the applications, which are like in a QA environment. Then comes the production. We need something for production as well. Now, all of this can be automated. Comes a pen testing. There are certain bugs might come up as part of the pen testing activities. So for some of you who don't know the pen testing is like performing the testing wherein we are exploiting the bugs. We're trying to figure out where things can go wrong. And sometimes it's manual, sometimes it's automated, but most of the times it's like a mix of it, so that people can figure out. And especially business logic testing fails that actually you can figure out via pen testing itself. So probably OWASP Zap proxy isn't enough to run the whole pipeline. It is just one part of it. That's what I'll say.
Okay. Another question has been asked from from Santosh, and he's asking that what is the role of vulnerability scanning in case of CI/CD or maybe
So
DevOps?
yeah. So it's again the same thing. Vulnerability scanning is it could be in a code base. People say it's just the application base, where when the application is dynamic, like in a QA environment set. But then I would say, even when the code is being written, like in the static phase, wherein you have a static code and you are testing it, that is also a vulnerability
Mhm.
scanning, because you're trying to figure out what vulnerabilities are part of the code, and then what vulnerabilities are part of the application, and you are tracking it and you're fixing it. I have seen organizations which are tracking every damn thing, but then when it comes to fixing, it is taking 2 months, it is taking 3 months. It is as good as you track it and then leave it in a bucket. That's how it is. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think you are absolutely correct. One of my previous organization, we used to have a huge security backlog, which was there, and we wanted to do it, but somehow features always take priority over, security. We don't, I mean, people don't comprehend the need of securing your application first rather than, adding more features on top of it.
Agreed. And that happens most of the times if we don't have the right thing. And that's what happens with a lot of breaches, wherein um, there is a patch which has been released. Everyone gets to know there is an exploit available, there is a patch available. But how many organizations update that patch, and how soon they update that patch? Maybe it
True.
takes times. I understand it takes time because there's a change cycle there, it needs to be tested. But how much time? That's the question. Because if you take too much of time, you know where the attackers are going to come from. You never know when you get breached. um, and then I have seen people saying, "Oh, I am following this standard. I'm following this." Standards are just going to be giving you a baseline, and what next you don't know. So you need to have every possible way to cover yourself, because as whenever you are on the internet, you're already breached. It's just that you're covering yourself to make sure that nothing goes further wrong.
Absolutely. One more interesting thing, which came into my mind. A couple of days back, one of my friends, he was talking about, he works for some startup, and there were a lot of DDoS attacks, and the whole application was going down. The infra was on cloud, and they could have done a number of stuff there. But any suggestions, from your experience, from your exposure, to sort of stop that kind of I mean, it was a huge loss for the organization, right? So any suggestion from your side, what can be done, what they could have done better?
I would say when you are on the cloud, the best is every cloud provider has some way to protect your environment from DDoS attacks. Or for the people who don't know, is so DDoS is denial of service, and DDoS is distributed denial of service, where the attack is coming from multiple places on your server. So as and when the cloud gets to know, oh, there's something happening on your environment, they alert you and they stop that attack. And in case you're still seeing it, there are multiple ways to block those IPs or to mask your server. And
So,
at the same time, what can be done is that uh, leverage those services from the cloud. And even people have started using CDNs, which are there, so that anything that comes, people actually start. For example, let me explain it in a way which is commonly easily understandable. So when you are accessing Netflix, for example, so it just easily gets to you, all the data easily gets to you, but in the middle there is a CDN which is there, could be from Akamai, from any other place, or from cloud provider, where the data is being cached. So CDN is
mhm.
basically used for that. And you can that can also help. It can be one way to avoid DDoS attacks. That's what I'll say, but then most of the cloud providers help you out with that. There are services available which can be pulled in. When you talk about your code, in the code itself, you can have validations which can avoid those uh, like buffer overflow attacks, which can lead to DOS or issues that are there. But then you need to have right validation, that will for sure help.
I think we also got one question from a user who is asking that what do you suggest early developers for some learning resource for security? Maybe as a developer, what would you suggest? Are there some resources available which they can refer?
Yes, absolutely. Give me 1 second. I'll give you one resource for sure. Okay, so I've just pinged you all the projects which are there. So that has documentation, that is tooling, that is everything. So OWASP has a great repositories, wherein it's open source. That's why I share it, because it's for every one of us to use it. And similarly, I have a friend, Tanya. She goes by She Hacks Purple. She has amazing resources which you can leverage. And at the same time, she runs a project called OWASP DevSlop, which is sloppy DevOps. So she does a lot of testing on the go. So she has amazing content for Microsoft Azure, like literally every pipeline which can fail, every tool that can be there, she's run it on the OWASP DevSlop project. So it's like a
Mhm.
live testing that we done. And so that's amazing. I have a YouTube channel where you can just search me out for Vandana Verma, and there are so many things around security for everyone that is there. But do check out DevSlop project, which is amazing, and that has huge content for Azure developers for sure.
Okay. So I've just pasted the link there, brewing codes, and
Yeah.
you can refer there. I think, yeah, it was an interesting session. It was an interesting chat, so to say. Thank you so much for being here, Vandana. Uh, so guys, please reach out to Vandana. If you think that she can help you with your security issues, and hope to see you soon. I think I would be requesting Vandana for a series of session, so be prepared for that. Okay. And it's a great it was a great session. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Nilashima, for inviting me and making me part of the amazing community and being part of the second session. And I look forward to many more sessions with the community and learn from everyone.
Yeah, that's the beauty of community, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and I think with that note, I'm going to end the broadcast. Bye everyone.